Okay, so what I've got in front of me here is some of Nokia's handsets, and two of these were announced here at Nokia World. The X6 on the left-hand side here, and the N97 Mini. I've got the N97 here in the middle, just as a comparison size here. So the N97 Mini is basically the little brother of the N97. You can see here it's got pretty much exactly the same design in terms of the mechanism. But there are some significant differences aside from the obvious one, which is size. You know, the materials in this N97 Mini, if I just sort of circulate this, you can see that the majority of it's actually made from metallic materials on the front and the back here. But there's more plastic around the side, whereas of course on the back of the N97 you've got that plastic back. You can also see there's a difference in the cameras here. Still Carl Zeiss 5 megapixel optics, but there's no slider. It's the same dual xenon flash and it's the same camera module, but you don't have the camera side, which cuts down on the sides. You can see here that the N97 Mini is actually quite a bit thinner than the N97. Also, in terms of the internal memory, it's only 8 gigabytes in this N97 Mini versus 32 megabytes in the big brother, the N97. They've both got the micro SD port, so if you want to put in a memory card to get expanded, you can do so. The other thing that's important about the N97 Mini is it's running version 2 of the software for this particular platform. Now, this is also coming to the N97 later in October, but we can have a quick look on here on the N97 Mini to see some of these things. I think one of the really obvious ones is the kinetic scrolling. You can see here I can move up and down on here rather than having a scroll bar on the side. You can see that's now disappeared, and that will work in any of these application folders. And you can see when you've got lots of applications installed, that makes a big difference. This also, as on the Nokia 5530 and some of the other Express Music devices, they've also done that in the list view. So if we go into the music library here, you can see we've got all songs. That's always a good long list. And you can see here it's nicely done with the album art and everything. Another little tweak there that we didn't have before. And again, it's the kinetic scrolling. You put it up and down like that, or put it down, click it to stop, and then you get there, go on to the next one. Significantly improving just the feel of navigating through long lists, and that also applies to messaging, to email, to contacts. And of course, in the N97, you only ever had kinetic scrolling in web, so I think, personally, I feel that's a big step up. The other thing about this N97 Mini, it has some new stuff in terms of the home screen. You can see here it's actually pretty much the same look and style, but they've updated the underlying API for the developers, so you should have much less problem with the online-offline problems that are typical on the N97. Some people suffer them from more than others. It depends on the widgets you installed here. But you can see there's location here. There's also some new widgets with the ESPN stuff and the CNN stuff, but it's the same configuration as before. If you want to edit the content, you just go in there, you can move the widgets about as before. So the actual N97 Mini in software terms, there's some significant upgrades in the version 2 software, which we'll have some more information on later. But all in all, the thing that's really struck me about this device, pick these two devices up together, I actually think, this is the one. It feels really solid. Build quality is excellent. I would say better than the N97 because of the use of the extra metallic materials. It's more comfortable in the hand, and actually I think the big thing is I could use this one-handed, whereas this I tend to have to use two-handed. It's just that extra width. I can get right across there with my thumb, and in the hand it just feels very comfortable. Now, looking at the keyboard, you can actually see there are some changes here. Noticeable is there's no longer a D-pad on the left-hand side there, but you've got the arrow keys here instead. Just having a very quick feel with the keyboard, I actually think the tactile feedback on this is slightly better. So despite the fact it's smaller, I'd expect this keyboard to maybe be a couple of % faster. It will, of course, depend on how much you get used to it. The other thing to note here is it's all the up-to-date versions of the Nokia software. You're going to get things like Nokia messaging all ready to go when this device launches in Q4. And that's another big step up. And people, are going to be saying this is what the N97 should have been, and the N97 is going to get the software, but it's really about consumer choice. You can either choose to have this N97 or the N97 Mini. You get the bigger screen on here, you get the bigger keyboard, more internal memory, so if you're doing lots of music and video, this is probably the better device for you. And this is sort of the technology leader device in Nokia segmentation terms. This is the young Explorer device. Nokia will sell more of this N97 Mini than they will the N900, simply because it's a more accessible device, it's phone-centric, and that's what operators are going to love. I mean, I suspect this one, operators are going to sign up for this a lot, because it's just that little bit cheaper. This is coming in at €450 before tax and subsidies. So, on a high street price, that's going to be free on your typical £30 contracts. Having looked at the N97 Mini, I think the other device I want to have a quick look at here is the X6, which is the first ever device from Nokia that's going to be exclusively available only on Comes With Music. So as a result of that, it does come in at quite a high price tag. It's about €450. But bear in mind that around €100 of that is probably the comes with music price. You can see here, it's sort of a, I think you could term this an update to the 5800. It's much sort of sleeker looking, but it's the similar plastic materials and the similar styling around the top edge here. And it's got, if we turn the screen lock off, you can see it's got the same Express Music drop-down menu there. It's got the same home screen with the scrolling contact bar. And this actually doesn't have, if you go into the home here, you see it's got the same, it's not a kinetic scrolling thing there, it's got the menu bar, but it does have the kinetic scrolling in all the list view, so that's things again like music, contacts, messaging. Aside from that, the interesting thing about this X6, it's one of the first Nokia devices with a capacitive screen. Actually, I'm not sure how much of a difference this really makes because there aren't very many gestures on the S60 5th edition interface, which is where capacitive screens really come into their own. You can see here it's quite smooth in terms of doing the kinetic scrolling. And of course you can actually also do it with the back of your fingernail. Sorry, you can't do it with the back of your fingernail because it is a capacitive screen. A few things just to note down here, you've got OV Store pre-installed. That's again a first for the sort of 5 or the X series devices. Looking on the back here, you've got a 5 megapixel Carl Zeiss camera again, so that's a step up from the 5800, the dual xenon flash, which should produce reasonable good conditions, even in low light conditions. 3.5mm audio jack and the USB port there for both for PC connectivity. You can still see though it's got the same 2mm Nokia charger port for actually powering the device. So all in all, this X6 I think is a bit of a hidden gem here at Nokia World. You know, all the attention's been on the N900 and the N97 Mini, but this feels very good in the hand. The build quality, I would say, of this, it feels less plasticky than the 5800 and the 5530. It's got this rounded edge here on the back that just makes it feel a little bit smaller in the hand. As you can see, it's actually similar size to the N97 Mini here, but it fits slightly more comfortably into the hand, I'd say, and a good example of how Nokia are giving consumers choice in their range of phones. So as again with all the recent Nokia phones, the software is maturing in terms of the OVI service available. Already mentioned the OVI Store. If you look under here, you'll see that you've got OVI Sync and OVI Contacts in there as well. The email set up for Nokia messaging, that's the consumer grade push email. That'll be ready to go with for mail for exchange, as well as the normal Nokia messaging offering, and that's going to be a version of the client as well. We'll pre-ship on this. Again, the difference from the 5800 and the N97 that have gone before. So what this really does with S60 5th edition, it's kind of, if you like, the second round of the devices. And what they've done here is some of the hardware is being tweaked a bit. So as I say, I think it just feels a bit more comfortable in the hand. It feels a little bit more like a version 2 product. But more importantly, the software has had the tweaks, and that's things like the kinetic scrolling, but also the fact that the OVI services ship with the phone. And those, of course, now add significant value, especially for a device like this. It comes with me that the value offering for something like this is that when you buy the device, you get a device that's going to cost, as I say, it's probably about £400 SIM-free, but you'll get it as a comes with music device. And what that means is it has as much music as you want to consume on the device ready to go. So the comparative to that is buying something like, I don't know, one of the high-end iPod Touches and getting as much music with it as you want to use. No more paying for iTunes. On this, you go to the Nokia Music Store, all the prices at zero, and you've got 32 gigabytes of memory. You can download it on the PC or download it on the phone, and you'll be able to have as much music as you like. And I think that's a significant value offer for essentially buying a device and getting a year or 18 months worth of free music with it. And that's, it hasn't done very well in the UK yet, comes with music, but this is a sort of device which is a bit more higher end than what's gone before, and I think, it may well do the trick.